CUB is a Healthy Start initiative to bridge the gap of breastfeeding initiation for Black mothers and Black babies. Our services are specifically targeted for Black mothers residing in Allegheny County. Our services include telephone, virtual, and in-home support. We also have our latch line that you can call 7 days a week from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. for lactation support. Simply call 412-545-2022, option 1, and a lactation professional will call you back within 20 minutes. We also offer breastfeeding classes. We have our Breastfeeding 101 class that prepares families for their breastfeeding journey. And I am so excited to share that we will be launching our Pump It Up class that will prepare our families for their pumping journeys. In addition to those classes, we also offer our monthly education through Milk Minutes. So in honor of World Doula Week, which is celebrated every year from March 22nd to the 28th, we're highlighting the essential roles doulas play in improving birth outcomes and promoting breastfeeding success. Today, we are joined by a very special guest, a dedicated doula who works on the front lines to support families through pregnancy, birth, and postpartum. Help me welcome Healthy Start's senior doula, Ashley Allesberry. Welcome.
Thank you, Ashley. Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to share this space with you.
Oh, well, I'm so happy that you decided to join us. Now, as we know, Black women, we experience disproportionate rates of infant mortality and maternal mortality, and it takes doulas to really fight the good fight and change those outcomes. So today I have a lot of questions for you. Hopefully we have enough time to go through them. And I just want you to share some of your experiences and some feedback that you have for mothers and also those who are interested in becoming doulas. You ready to jump in?
Yes.
Okay, great. I have my questions prepared here. And as we jump in, share, how did you become a doula and why?
So 6 years ago, I was pregnant with a baby girl. I had the support of family and friends. However, my partner was overseas. So I felt like I was missing something. And like I said, even though I had so many people around me, I still felt like there were things that I needed to know or questions that I had that I wanted to ask the healthcare professionals. And essentially, I didn't do that because I just didn't know how. As my pregnancy progressed, I was working with the Midwife Center and just exploring their resources, I stumbled across a doula, and we had a conversation. She told me pretty much everything she does, how she does it, but I was about 9 months pregnant. So it was essentially not too late, but I was further along and I was kind of unsure about it. So instead of kind of leaning in, I just let the resource kind of sit. And then after I had my daughter, I realized that this was a service that I could have used that I didn't take advantage of. And essentially, as I navigated postpartum, I kept hearing more about a postpartum doula, and I kept hearing more about just postpartum services like breastfeeding and lactation, and the word doula came up again. So I actually looked into it this time, and being as though I seen everything they did, I truly felt that that was something that I was missing during my pregnancy, and that was something that could have made a better outcome. So after looking into it, I seen that training was located in Pittsburgh, PA. So I looked into training, and I actually ended up taking the training. I took the training with Jen. She is one of the people who was still actually hosting in-person classes. So it was a wonderful experience. It was beautiful. I learned so much about being a doula. I learned so much about postpartum, and I also learned a nice bit about breastfeeding. So after I got trained, I kind of talked to my family and friends about it, and I actually had a cousin who had a baby on the way. So I had told my cousin, I'm like, hey, I'm a doula now, so it would be awesome, like, if you guys let me kind of tag along just to see, how I would do or just what it would be like truly. So we began to work together through her prenatal period. She was about 6 months pregnant. I remember I got a ball, I blew it up, I had her sit on the ball, she did some figure eights. We talked about, pushing, breathing, meditation, and just comfort measures. We talked about all the things, and I truly felt like I was comfortable because I knew her. And not only that, but I knew what I didn't have. So I felt like if I gave her what I felt I was missing, it would be like a great experience. So essentially, that's what we did. We worked together through her prenatal period, and then finally, February 2nd actually is the baby's birthday. February rolled around. I remember them calling me like, "Hey, we're in labor. We're on our way to the hospital." So I'm like, okay. I grabbed my doula bag with all the things. I was so eager and excited, like I said, to really get out there.
Absolutely, that is beautiful. I mean, the fact that you took your own, what you didn't have in your birthing experience, to ensure that your cousin had it in hers, just speaks on your heart and how much you do care for the women that you serve. And then you also mentioned that you were able to incorporate father into the birth too. Could you share on some ways that dads could help and essentially be a hands-on approach, or have a hands-on approach when it comes to birth?
Yeah. One of the most helpful things dads can do during the pregnancy is just be there, be present, listen to mom, support mom, physically, emotionally. And one of the biggest things they can do in labor is comfort moms. Labor can be a lot on the body, it can be a lot on the mind, it can be a lot on the soul. So just kind of being a stand in there, being present, being there for your partner to lean in for. I think that's important. And one of the things I like to do with my dads is I like to physically show my dads how to comfort moms. We have something called a comfort measure visit. And at that visit, I kind of go through all the ways we can comfort mom in labor. I like to ask dad, how does your partner like to be comforted? Because a lot of times they kind of know their partners, right? And they just know what's going to make them feel good. So I like to let dad do that, especially in the birthing space. And I also remind dad, be there, be present. You may not be able to have the baby, but you letting the mom know, you are here and you will do anything for her to make her okay. It really helps.
For sure. So not many may know, but I'm a doula as well. And I recall from my doula training that they said the same energy it takes to make a baby is the same energy needed to deliver a baby.
Yes.
And so fathers really do play a huge role when it comes to supporting a mom during labor.
Yes.
That loving touch, the kissing, the rubbing, the touching, just making sure that she is comforted during that transition. It's interesting when you think about it, but it's really true that a lot of the same energy, a lot of that just connectedness that it takes to make a baby is definitely necessary when delivering a baby.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I think that energy is important. And like I said, as moms, as women, we like to lean into our partner. So I feel like, as a partner, just kind of being there will make the outcome all the most better.
Yes, I agree.
Actually, yeah, no, I completely agree. I think that energy is important. And like I said, as moms, as women, we like to lean into our partner. So I feel like, as a partner, just kind of being there will make the outcome all the most better.
Yes, I agree. All right, now moving along, how does your cultural background influence the way you support Black families through pregnancy, birth, and postpartum?
So my cultural background, as a Black woman, a Black mom of two, I've seen kind of firsthand how things can be in healthcare settings or just settings in general, but more so the healthcare setting. And I see how sometimes, we're expected to have this astronomical level of pain, or, we're supposed to be able to be stronger than everyone, and that's just with everything. That's whether it's physical, emotional, and I see how, implicit bias can affect that experience for moms. So I think with my cultural background, just being a Black mom, I think it's important. I think it's important that we highlight, the support that us Black women need.
Absolutely.
Especially in these healthcare settings. Like I said, it's difficult to navigate a space that you're not familiar with, especially when there may be like medical jargon or things, and it's kind of, sometimes it's overwhelming.
Oh,
and
for sure.
You as a mom, as a young Black mom, I didn't want to make the doctor uncomfortable, or I didn't want to make the doctor feel a type of way and not give me the best quality of care because they felt challenged. So essentially, I understand, how it is to be young and Black, or just Black, in these spaces and feel intimidated.
For sure.
So I think actually being in that space and being able to be on the other side of that space kind of works. So I think just being who I am, fortunately gave me the upper hand in my profession, just because I've actually seen and felt those racial disparities. I've dealt with implicit bias. I've dealt with not the best care, and just certain things that us only Black women have to deal with. So I think just my cultural background prepared me to have more compassion and more empathy and more sympathy for Black women, Black babies, and even the people who serve us.
Absolutely. And you, like you said, you use that therapeutic use of self. You use those lived experiences so that you're able to help mothers or even prevent some of those outcomes that you've experienced yourself.
Yes,
And
certainly.
That's beautiful. All right. So, how do you see Black doulas playing a role in reducing racial disparities in maternal and infant health?
I see it every day. As a Black doula here in Allegheny County who helps Black and brown families, we make a difference one birth at a time. We are truly here in the hospitals with our Black families, supporting our Black moms through labor, supporting them through postpartum, helping them with breastfeeding. I think that essentially us Black women are on the front lines to support the Black woman now, and I think it's changing things. I think it's changing the trajectory of care. Honestly, like I said, we're all kind of aware of the statistics here in Allegheny County, right?
Yes.
And it's so unfortunate because those are our moms, those are our community, those are the people who we serve. So I feel like as a Black doula and other Black doulas, we feel kind of a sense of responsibility to protect each other. And not only that, but we feel a sense of pride when we're able to do that because we are aware of how bad it can be. So I think just as a Black community doula amongst other Black community doulas, I think if anything, like it's a privilege. It's a privilege to serve you guys, and it's a privilege, because you're a doula. It's a privilege to make a difference because, like I said, those statistics are real and they don't seem to be getting better.
But you're right. It is one family at a time, and that's how you make a lasting difference, for sure. All right. Here's a good question. When it comes to breastfeeding, what specific challenges do Black mothers and birthing people face that others may not?
One of the biggest things I think us Black women kind of face with the breastfeeding challenge is that it's just like it's not appropriate. And when I say appropriate, I mean it's not appropriate for a woman to be outside feeding her baby, or it's not appropriate for a woman to have her breast out. Unfortunately, I think because of years and years of trauma and other things that have, no relation to do with breastfeeding, I think people have this perception that breastfeeding may be, something that's not made for us, but essentially, as we know, as we've seen, like Black women have been breastfeeding for centuries, babies who look like us, babies who don't look like us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you did touch on it briefly, but we are living the effects of slavery, ultimately. Black women,
they don't seem to be getting better.
But you're right, it is one family at a time, and that's how you make a lasting difference, for sure. All right.
Correct. And I think, one of the biggest things is the lack of awareness and education. A lot of things that you just said, you had very, very great valid points. Just kind of from slavery, right? Having a baby and kind of being taken from that baby, right? Not being able to have that golden hour, not being able to have that baby lay on your chest and scoot, and, just not being able to have that, right? So I think after so long of not having that, it almost became something that no one thought about. And then once we did kind of start bringing that back, it was just like, oh, okay, this is, what you're doing. And just even my own experience, I've had, people close to me that are like, oh, you're breastfeeding. And I'm like, yeah, it's free. Not only that, but the milk, the composition of the milk, the things that are in the milk, there are things in my milk that my baby can't get elsewhere.
Exactly.
If my baby's sick, my milk is going to change to fit my baby's needs. There were so many things that I was not privy to, and there are so many things people are not privy to. So I think it's really not having the education to support, so I think once I was able to really be able to realize, oh, hey, I can do this, I took advantage of all the things that I was able to do it so I could improve people around, because essentially, like I said, when I started breastfeeding, I had, family members kind of look at me like, are you going to cover up? Like, hey, where, I remember actually being in a restaurant and kind of feeding my baby, and I had a family member at the table like, hey, can you go to the bathroom? And I'm like, well, you don't eat in the bathroom.
Exactly, we're all eating.
Yeah, so I think essentially society has this view of oh, breastfeeding is this or breastfeeding is that, when essentially breastfeeding is one of the most beautiful things you can do, and it's one of the most beautiful interactions you'll have with your baby. It's a different sort of connectedness. It's a different feeling. So essentially, if anything, I think that society's view on breastfeeding is different than the actual view of breastfeeding.
Absolutely. And then also culturally, again, if we don't see it, then when you do go to a restaurant and you decide to breastfeed, you might be faced with challenges from your family, like, go cover up or go do that somewhere else, which other cultures may not experience that.
Yeah, and and it's kind of the same thing, like, not just family, but you have other people's restaurant goers, the people are kind of looking, and it's really, like I said, at first I might have felt maybe a little just uneasy, but when I realized, like, oh, this is for my baby, I think, it made a big difference. And not only that, but I think representation is huge.
Absolutely.
As a young Black mom, I wanted other young Black moms to see, hey, you can do this, and as an older Black mom now, I feel the same. If anything, I feel it's more important now to show the young Black women that you can breastfeed. Absolutely. With a little education, a little support, like, you can make this dream come true, because essentially that's what it is now, right? It's we want to give our babies the goal, we want to give them the best.
Goals. They want to give them the best.
Yes.
And our bodies are made for this. That's the one thing. Like, our bodies are made to feed our babies.
Yes.
And we just have to kind of trust in our body and be patient with the process too.
And I think that's what a doula does. A doula kind of helps you trust yourself so you can feed that baby and you can get over that hump.
Absolutely. I mean, you mentioned it earlier that doulas provide that emotional, that mental, and that physical support. So once the baby is here and, you have those 2 hours after birth where you're still committed to the mother, making sure that she latches, you're able to provide her with that support in that moment.
Certainly. Yeah. Here at Healthy Start, I've been fortunate enough to have such a wonderful team of people who are able to promote, breastfeeding. They're able to get me resources that help me support my mom with breastfeeding, that help me support my mom with comfort measures. So I think it's a team effort. Thanks to the CUB, for sure. You have also been a huge help in my doula journey, just, as a friend and as a coworker. So I appreciate that.
Absolutely. And of course, I appreciate you too. As you gave me my doula bag with all of my goodies. So I appreciate you. It was a year ago, actually. This week. Yes, it was a year ago that you gave me my bag and prepared me and gave me those words. As I reflect, I just think about how important it was to hear from a Black woman that, oh, you got this, you'll be able to support them. And not only did you build me up, but you put me in position to change birthing outcomes for mothers that I serve too. So I thank you for that as well.
Yes, absolutely. I think that's the best thing we can do, honestly, as community doulas and as doulas here at Healthy Start. I think just kind of leaning into each other and supporting each other is the best thing.
Absolutely. And that goes for breastfeeding too, right?
Absolutely. Listen, breastfeeding, that's a thing.
Yeah, you gotta lean in. Okay. Here's a good one. Can you share an example of a time when your presence